I don't think that there's a single Queenslander today who is not happy for Ash Barty, and on behalf of Queenslanders, can I congratulate Ash on a historic win. I think everyone was glued to their television sets last night watching her bring it home, and especially that second set when it was 5-1, every bit of determination. She is such an inspiration. I like to congratulate Ash. She's a very strong family, very proud Queenslander, and I think she should be nominated as a Queensland great. She is definitely a Queensland legend, and she is such a great role model. I know there's a lot of young girls out there, including my own niece, that look up to Ash each and every day and see her as an inspiration to want to make their lives better. So well done, absolutely exciting news, and we are so proud. And to be here at the Tennis Queensland Centre today, we will actually meet some of the other young Queenslanders that are embarking on their journey as well. But to Ash and her family, well done. Everyone's proud. I think she's going to get the keys to Ipswich. I think she's going to get the keys to Brisbane. She's going to get the keys to Queensland. But hopefully we'll have a big Barty party when she comes home. I don't think anyone will deserve it better than Ash. So well done, and I'll hand over to Ilya to say a few words from Tennis Queensland, and then we'll take some questions on this first. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier, and good morning. What a night, how electric. I'm sure, as the Premier said, every Queenslander was cheering on for Ash, and everyone could have heard that in Rod Laver Arena. It was a special place to be, and to see her bring that title home in 44 years was even more special. Her predecessor who did take that on, Chris O'Neill, back 44 years ago, Ash had the same scoreline last night, so very special. Also the special person in her life in Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley, winning the same type of Grand Slams as well, with the French Open, then Wimbledon, and now that Australian Open, with only more to come from that amazing Queenslander who absolutely inspires us all. We're so lucky to have Ash here, and we're very lucky to see her train here, and she's an inspiration to Queenslanders everywhere, and we're seeing that through the way that people are playing tennis. Last year, Ozplay told us that we had an additional 1.5 million people playing our sport across the ages, and the fastest growing sport across our age groups. It's something we're proud of, and I'm sure that Ash has got a lot to do with that, and even more so moving forward. To complement that, we're also working in partnership with the Queensland Government on opening up our tennis courts across Queensland. So digitising our sport to make sure that courts are accessible across Queensland for anyone to have a go whenever they'd like to. We're a match for all, we're here for everyone, any age, any ability, a sport that everyone can enjoy, whether it be watching or playing. We're just so lucky to have Ash be that ambassador for us, be that special person, and we can't wait to celebrate her win coming home. Thank you.
All right. Any questions on Ash at all? No?
Yeah, can you tell us how you spent last night?
Yeah. I was at my sister's house, so her husband cooked, which was great. We had sausages and salad, and my two nieces were there, and we cheered Ash on. And like I said, my younger niece Lucy, she plays tennis. She's absolutely inspired. She just loves Ash, and I think that just shows you how well she is loved. And everyone was there watching it.
How were you feeling when she went down 5-1 in that second set?
I think everyone's heart sank. Everyone was sort of feeling it, and I didn't know whether she was going to move on to the third set and feel energised to go into that, but she just came back, honestly, and that sheer determination, you know, what guts she has. Fantastic. Awesome win.
We've been out of Ipswich this morning. They said she's already had the keys to the city. She's already got a court named after herself. They want a ticker tape parade, but surely the next option is some kind of statue, whether it's at Ipswich or here.
I think a statue right here would go down a treat. So let's go for a statue here, and I think Ash Barty deserves it. If she wants it, it's totally up to her.
And obviously we didn't see the Brisbane International played here in January. How important is it given?
Yeah, absolutely, really important, and there's discussions at the moment, and the Sports Minister should have some news about that in the coming weeks. Okay? Sorry? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I suppose as a sport, how comforting is it to have someone like Ash Barty be a real, I suppose, a unifier for the country in the last kind of a tough couple of years?
Absolutely, and no matter where you go, any young player, whether they're starting out, they know who Ash Barty is. We've got players who have been playing probably for their whole lives and have never really felt the way that they do about the sport. And the stories that you get to hear across the country and across Queensland, Ash is the reason for that. And we're seeing our courts absolutely full to the brim, needing to build more and making sure that we can give people that accessibility because she wants them to get out on court and she's helping them feel that way to do it again.
What sort of uptick do you see in these days after a Grand Slam win?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically after any Grand Slam, we see our clubs absolutely booming and their phones ringing off the hook or their internet sales, whichever way that we have people consume our sport. But particularly since Ash's win over Wimbledon and then leading into the summer, and particularly being a Queensland girl, we're seeing that even more so. So any coach that you talk to across Queensland is just saying that they are absolutely full as they can go and making sure that they've got more coaches and more classes and more places to play. So it's only a good news story. It's a great problem to have when something is too busy. It's wonderful.
Do you think here is the rightful place that a statue should go of Ash Barty, or should it be out at Ipswich? Or
I think, as the Premier said, it's really how does this best work for Ash. She's an amazing person and we know she's got a great team behind her. So it's making sure that that right spot for Ash, and I'm sure that we'll work on that with her.
And just in terms of, I know there's a big question about, we saw the special Ks last night, All-Australian doubles final. Ash obviously wins. Are we improving at a grassroots level? Like, we have had this drought for so long, but is there something in the last 5-10 years, is something in the water in Australian tennis?
It's definitely in the water, and it's in the Queensland water. We've got a brilliant national academy here, and we can't thank our coaches enough who are bringing up that next crop of players coming through. And not only the likes of Ash and Jason that we saw over the weekend, but also Kim Burrell from the Gold Coast in Queensland, Lizette Cabrera, our young and up-and-coming players. They've been nurtured here in Queensland. So it's definitely something that's here, we believe, and there's more to come with our younger juniors coming through those ranks as well. So the accessibility we have to great coaches and great facilities here in Queensland is a big reason because of that.
Should Pat Ruff be worried his stadium might be renamed?
Oh, honestly, Pat's the most wonderful, humble gentleman you'll ever meet, so he'll just be so excited for Ash, but I don't think he needs to worry about that. But no, we're just so lucky to have even someone like him just be a part of the sport the way that he is.
Right, thank you. All right, we might move on to health if we can. COVID. I'll just hand these over to Shane. Okay, we've got, like I said, we've got some young kids coming down shortly. So first of all, we'll do the COVID update, and to our viewers online, we will also be talking about our back to school plans today as well. So first of all, I'll give the COVID update. I'll do a bit about touch on back to school and back to work. So I think if we're going to send our children back to school, we can all go back to work as well in a safe way. So we'll discuss that as well. So today we have 8,580 new cases, 2,643 positive rats. So tragically, once again, it's my sad duty to inform the public that there have been 13 deaths in people aged over their 60s. The Chief Health Officer will give more information there. But can I just say to the families, we express our deep condolences at this time. The Chief Health Officer will give some more information about numbers in hospital, but in encouraging news, the numbers are coming down. So we have 745 in hospital, which is down quite a lot from yesterday, and the numbers in ICU have come down as well to 41. And we are seeing a decline in hospitalisations in the Gold Coast, in Ipswich, in Logan and Brisbane South. So this is encouraging news, but like I said, we're still not out of the woods yet. And once again, I still stress that advice to our elderly about not going to crowded places until we get through the peak of this wave. So once again, that is very, very encouraging news. We also have a case of that new Omicron variant that has been detected in one of our hospitals, and in fact Queensland was one of the first places, if you recall back in December, that actually had who were first detected and discovered that new variant. So the Chief Health Officer will talk a little bit more about that as well. And our vaccine coverage is 91.96% first dose and 89.49% second dose. In relation to boosters, 55% of our population have had their boosters now, 1.386 million. and our 5 to 11-year-olds is 32.69 of eligible children have had 1 dose that have been booked in. Can I just stress to the parents, if you are wishing to get your children vaccinated, this week is the week before children go back to school, so I'd strongly encourage you to make that booking, and it's safe and effective, so please think about that. But of course it comes down to your choice about that, so that's good news. So today I've got Minister Grace here as well to talk about our back to school plan, and we welcome Minister Grace back, and she's fighting fit, and she might actually describe to you a bit about her own experiences of going through COVID. And it just goes to show you that this variant can affect anyone in any walk of life. And I'm just very glad that Grace and her husband have had a good recovery. So we had a good chat last night on the phone, and it's good that she's here, and she tested negative, so I can assure everyone that it is safe. All right, so we're going to talk briefly about our back to school program, and Minister Grace will go in a bit more detail. So we want our schools to be a safe place, and I want parents to have confidence, and I want to make sure that the children know exactly what they need to going back as well. So we have teachers, staff and children returning next Monday, February the 7th. Now, masks will be mandatory in high schools, and we are strongly encouraging masks from year 3 upwards. So, look, a lot of people have had experience with this. We'll be making the masks available at schools as well. So this is an added safety measure during this particular time. And don't forget, we're going through our peak at the moment, and we delayed the start of the school year because of that. And you can see our numbers are coming down, so I'm very confident that we absolutely made the right decision to delay school by those 2 weeks. Now, teachers can remove their masks to teach, and students can remove them when seated. And like I said, masks will be available at school. Now, it's really important to the whole school community, if you are sick, stay at home. Don't go to school. Just like we say in the workplace, if you are sick, don't go to work. Now, in relation to rapid antigen tests, I just want to let you know how that will work. So that's the RATs. Now, there is no health advice by the Chief Health Officer or by AHPPC that staff or students need regular testing. On top of that, many parents have raised with me concerns about how they would administer these tests to their children. So I think we've reached a good middle point. Now, what that middle point means is that in relation to the RATs, we will make a number of them available to schools across our state. So if a child is at school and does develop any symptoms, the parents will be called, and the parents will be given a RAT test to take home with that child. Likewise, if a teacher has symptoms or anyone in the school community, they'll be able to collect a RAT test from the school office. So if, however, you are sick at home, we would encourage you to go to one of our testing health centres. There's a lot of availability at the moment because that high demand has come down. But likewise, the school community have very good networks. So, for example, you might have a friend down the road, and they are able to get the test from the school and drop it into your letterbox. So I am quite comfortable that this is the right approach because parents are very concerned about administering it. And like I said, they sometimes are more comfortable taking their child or themselves to a centre, a testing centre, for that to happen. But then there are some parents that would be more than comfortable testing their child, and they will be available. But there is no requirement, there is no health advice to have the school community regularly tested. So I just want to make that up front, and that is the decision that our Cabinet, the Chief Health Officer, myself, and of course the Health Minister and Education Minister have made. Now, because we can get our school community going safely back to school, it is also the time to go safely back to work. So we know some of our businesses are struggling in the CBD and other parts of Queensland. So, you know, as long as you're wearing masks indoors, it is safe to gradually return back to work. So, of course, speak with your employer, speak with your supervisors. If you're a part of that vulnerable group, of course, you may decide not to be returning to work at the moment until we get through this wave. So it's a very good advice there for people, but I'm quite sure that employers will be speaking with members of their staff to have a safe return to work. So February 7th, Monday, February 7th, back to school, back to work. I think it all sounds good. Okay, so I might hand over to, I'll hand over to the Chief Health Officer to go into a bit more detail about those hospital admissions and what he's seeing in relation to that. And then I'll hand over to the Health Minister and then the Education Minister. Then we'll take any questions on our back to school plan first, and then we'll finish with that, and then I'm happy to take any other questions. So it's a long press conference today. My apologies, but we'll get through it.
So thank you very much, Premier. So sadly, today we have 13 deaths to report. So these are 13 Queenslanders who have died having recently had a positive COVID-19 test. This includes 2 people in their 60s, 4 in their 70s, 3 in their 80s, 3 in their 90s, and 1 aged over 100. 5 of these people were unvaccinated. 8 had received 2 doses, none had received a booster, none had received a 3rd dose. Our thoughts and sympathies are very much with their families. In some good news, we now have a total of 745 people in hospital being treated for COVID-19. Now that's a substantial decrease over yesterday when it was 833. So we've gone from 833 to 745. Of course, we shouldn't be paying too much attention to a single day, but that is a very substantial decline. So it's hard not to feel that is a real phenomenon that we're observing. Similarly, the intensive care admissions have declined in the last 24 hours. We've gone from 53 patients in intensive care down to 41 in Queensland public hospitals, and 14 of those patients in Queensland public hospitals are ventilated. The Premier mentioned that we have identified overnight a case of the BA2 subvariant of the Omicron strain of virus in Queensland. You would have read about this perhaps in Denmark and the United Kingdom, where there have been a number of isolates identified. In fact, this particular virus was first identified by the Forensic and Scientific Service in Brisbane at the beginning of December. You might recall that they identified a novel strain of the Omicron, a variant of the Omicron. This is in fact the same strain first identified here in Queensland back then. What we know about this strain of virus is it does appear to be a bit more contagious. It doesn't seem to be any more harmful. It's no more virulent than the standard Omicron strain. And as far as we know, and it appears that the vaccines are equally effective against this strain. So I'm not unduly concerned about it, but in other countries sometimes it has become more dominant over the original Omicron strain. But I'm not unduly concerned about this. It just appears to be slightly more contagious than Omicron, which in of itself is contagious. But the good news is that our numbers in Queensland in the last 24 hours have declined significantly, and let's hope that continues in the coming weeks. Certainly that is what our projections suggest, that in the coming weeks we're expecting the numbers to continue to decline. I'll now hand over to Health Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Gerard. And yeah, I do want to acknowledge our amazing forensics team who did identify the world first of this variant that's now called BA2, which at the time was referred to as Omicron-like. We've now seen another case of that in Queensland, so we shouldn't be surprised to see more of that. I think what that reminds us all of is that this is a highly contagious virus, and if this new variant is more contagious, it means spreading even more quickly to more people. And that is all the more reason why people need to be getting vaccinated, whether it's their first, their second, or their booster. I want to also note that we've had 100,293 rapid antigen test positives registered since we started up the register on the 8th of January. So over 100,000 positive tests that people have taken at home and registered. And I thank Queenslanders for continuing to inform us when they do get that positive test at home, and that's going to be even more important as we move forward, and any young children or teachers and staff at our schools who have any symptoms to come forward, and certainly can come forward at our testing clinics, as the Premier said, where they will be able to get a PCR test, or alternatively they will be able to get one of the free rapid antigen tests and take it home and test themselves or their child who has got the symptom, whether it's the teacher or of course students. So they will get priority, just as we've given priority to other groups over our time with our testing clinics. Students and staff at schools, if they have symptoms and present at any of our testing clinics, will get priority as far as being provided those free tests, and also being able to get them quickly and leave the testing clinics without having to line up for long periods of time. I also want to acknowledge the deaths today, the 13 deaths, and pass on my condolences. I think it's really important we once again recognise that none of those people had had their booster shot. And we are seeing this time and time again. Every day we are reporting these deaths. Very few people who have had a booster shot are passing away from COVID. So we know that the booster makes a difference. But I also want to acknowledge, as I've said previously, 5 of the 13 were unvaccinated. Now this makes up 38% of the deaths we're reporting today are unvaccinated people, even though they only make up 8% of the population here in Queensland. 38% of the deaths. So please, it is not too late to get your first dose of vaccine. There is plenty available, plenty of places to go to get vaccinated. I encourage people to come forward. The news about our number of COVID patients in our hospitals is very positive to see. Those numbers coming down. I can report that now we have only 3,411 health and ambulance staff who are either positive or quarantining. That's a significant drop from the 18th of January, where we were over 6,000 staff were offline. Now we're down to 3,400, and that is great news. My last message is get your vaccination. Our 12 to 15-year-olds are still not at 70% double dose. They're only 67.21%. have had 2 doses in the 12 to 15-year-old age group, and they're all going back to school in a week's time. So please, parents, I strongly encourage, if your 12 to 15-year-old is concerned about getting this vaccination, take them to a local pharmacy or to a GP to have that conversation, or go into any one of our vaccination clinics and talk to the staff there, and they can explain any concerns, any queries that our 12 to 15-year-olds may have as to why they might hesitate in getting that vaccine. It's so important they get vaccinated. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be back. And as the Premier said, I tested negative yesterday evening, and I gave her a call straight away to say that that was the case. But can I just make a few personal comments? Getting COVID is no walk in the park. And I think if Michael and I hadn't been double vaxxed and boosted, we would have had a pretty torrid time. And I'm sure that the fact that we were double vaxxed and also had received our booster, that it made a big difference to a couple in their early 60s who got COVID. And even though I described my symptoms as mild and that I didn't require hospitalisation, and we didn't have a terrible case of not being able to breathe or anything like that, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. And so I would urge, even more so today, after having gone through this ordeal, that anyone who is not vaccinated or anyone who is thinking twice about it, please go and get vaccinated. It is the best protection you are going to have. And I'm very pleased that our 50 plus schools over the weekend and right up until the 6th of February will be providing vaccination for 5 to 11-year-olds and indeed other age groups as well. So please, if you're not vaccinated as a family, go and get vaccinated. I found it to be the best protection, and Michael says exactly the same thing. Can I also give a plug for Queensland Health? I'm not just saying this because I'm a minister in the government, but they were excellent. The information that we received is second to none. It is world class, it is easy to understand, it is to the point, and they did a fantastic job in making sure that Michael and I were safe. And I want to thank them and the Health Minister and Dr. Gerard on a job well done, being someone who's recently gone through it. To our health staff, congratulations, what a fantastic job they are all doing. And equally as our teachers and staff in schools are doing. As you know, our schools are back for vulnerable and essential workers, vulnerable children and essential workers, and the first week has been fantastic. We've had about a 5% attendance, and that's about 25,000 to 29,000 children. It's a good sample, and we've had a very trouble-free first week of school. Next week we start remote learning for 11 and 12s, and we're all back to school on the 7th of February. We have a comprehensive back to school plan. This is just the placemat that we've got to give advice. We have many Q&As that will be on site. All your questions will be answered, and we have a full week to implement largely what has already been implemented in schools over the last 2 years. We're refining it, and we were refining it last week right up until the last day to make sure that we get the balance right and the common sense approach that we embarked upon when we delayed school for 2 weeks at the beginning, and everyone back on the 7th of February. Can I say that in that delay, it's given our children the ability to get vaccinated and for us to set up these hubs so that we have more vaccination of school children when they arrive back at school. The plan is very much about making sure that we can keep the school communities as safe as possible, and it involves, as the Premier says, a number of measures that we've already either implemented or making new measures available to them. So, for example, we started last year with mandatory vaccination in line with every other state and territory, and I'm pleased to report that over 98% of our teachers are fully vaccinated, and we have 5,000 relief staff on call that we can call upon who are also fully vaccinated, and we have a very comprehensive staff management place in place. Mask wearing for all high school students and staff in line with existing mandate. Masks available and of course strongly recommended and provided for years 3 to 6, and a range of ventilation measures. We put a committee together right across the government and non-government sector. That committee included QUT, the Doherty Institute. We had Safe Work Australia. We had experts, and we've refined that ventilation plan. And can I proudly also say, Premier, we're nearly there with every single classroom in this state being air conditioned or having manual ventilation of some sort. But air conditioning is almost there, and there's more to say about that very soon. The temporary measures for the first 4 weeks, and this is because of the wave, and we want to make sure that in the first 4 weeks, and this is what we were refining, do we allow excursions, do we allow sporting events, do we allow parents onto sites? Those kind of things were the refining that we were doing along a common sense approach, so we could get our back to schools working and using the closure of schools or the closure of classrooms as a last resort. So RATs, rapid antigen tests, will be available in schools for students and staff who develop symptoms while on site, and we will have supply, and they will be provided. If you're symptomatic, we want to get you home and get you tested, whether you're a staff member or a student, and we will have those tests available in kits for students and staff to take home because we don't want them hanging around the school grounds. We would prefer that they leave and they get their testing done off-site as soon as possible if they're symptomatic. Also, as the Health Minister has said, priority access to our health clinics, there for staff and students of school age. RATs will be also provided to staff entering remote communities, in particular Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. They will be provided with tests to ensure that they are COVID-free before they enter those very vulnerable communities, and they are being provided at the moment. Can I also welcome my Director General, Michael Darth, who's here as well, and who's been working, him and his team, extensively on this plan, and while I've been at home in the for their work. We are suspending things like school camps, excursions, large assemblies and large gatherings in schools for the first 4 weeks. We don't want to have unnecessary movement. We don't want to have unnecessary people coming onto school sites in this time that we are through a very difficult and ever-changing world of Omicron that we are facing at the moment. We want to limit visitors to school sites, with exception for parents. We understand, and carers for students experiencing vulnerability. Parents would like to escort their children onto the schools, and they will be allowed to do so. And for all students in our early childhood development programs in our centres, parents can escort them, and of course kindergarten, prep and year 1. So from year 2 upwards, we are asking parents, please acknowledge what the school puts in place about drop-off zones and limit your presence on school sites for the first 4 weeks. We will monitor this, of course. We will review it regularly, and we will get information out to parents via their school communities, as often as we would need to. The department has done an excellent job in not only communicating with all stakeholders about this, but obviously also making sure that we communicate with parents at the same time. There are a number of other things I think that are important, that we make sure we keep up our additional cleaning in schools. So high point areas, desktops, switches, they will all be cleaned, and we will maintain our additional cleaning in schools to make sure that they are safe. We will ensure that where schools need to be CO2 tested for ventilation, that will be carried out, and that air purifiers provided where natural ventilation or air conditioning is insufficient. And we don't anticipate that that's going to be in too many locations. From the reports that we've received and all the work we've done since October last year, our ventilation plan is very well supported. Like I said, we want to limit non-urgent access to schools and, obviously suspend excursions and those kinds of stuff. Can I just have a little bit of a reminder? I'd like to remind everyone that schools are currently open for vulnerable children and children of essential workers, and that Queensland schools, unlike schools down south, were opened basically all of last year. In comparison, at one stage, we were the only schools on the eastern seaboard of Australia that were open, and some of those schools were closed for months. So we've got a very good track record in keeping our school communities safe, and in making sure, in dealing with the Premier and the health advice that we receive, and the department has really exercised what they needed to do in schools exceptionally, and I'm very proud of what they've done in light of the challenges that we've been facing for the last 2 years. I'd also like to remind parents and carers that while full remote learning will only be in place for year 11 and 12 from tomorrow, there are excellent resources for all students available via our Learning at Home website. As I said, our entire school communities, from students to teachers and all staff, have shown incredible resilience and patience, and I thank them for that throughout this pandemic. I want to thank them all for that, and I am sure that they will continue to do the right thing in 2022. Most importantly, if you are symptomatic, please stay at home, get tested in the priority areas, and do not come to school. If you develop symptoms at school, let someone know as soon as possible, and you'll be provided with whatever assistance you need to get yourself tested and back on the road to recovery should you prove positive. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sorry,
Annastacia, just with those RAT tests that are going to go to schools for symptomatic kids and staff, how many tests will be sent out, and will they go to every state school and private school?
Yeah, that's a good question, Lydia. They will go to all schools, government and non-government schools, and we have enough supply to provide a percentage that would be anticipated that may require them based upon the evidence that we have, and we will be getting more supplies, and we're working with health and we're working with state development to ensure that we have adequate supplies. But we have thousands of tests available at the moment and will be ready for day one on the 7th of February.
How many will be sent out for that?
Oh, look, I think there's about 50,000 kits, or 50,000 at the moment. We're looking at about 750 plus thousand that we will require over the 4 weeks. So we will have adequate supply for whoever is symptomatic and requires them. Excuse me, I need to have a drink. Yes.
In an ideal world, if the government had, say, millions of rapid tests, would you have moved to a more regular testing regime?
I can answer this.
I think, as the Premier said, that is not what the advice says, but I'll give that to the Premier.
Look, we had a meeting of National Cabinet, and I was very clear that Queensland had not received any advice from the Chief Health Officer, nor had AHPPC recommended the regular testing of staff and students. It was never recommendation. Now, we always take the health advice. I'm very proud of taking the health advice, and there was no health advice to say that. But we think we've reached a good middle common ground here that I think will satisfy the school community, but also parents. Especially, a lot of parents don't want to administer those tests to their children.
Given New South Wales is sending out 5 million RAT tests to schools this week, do you think they're wasting the RATs if there's no health advice on it?
That's entirely a matter for them. But as the Minister said, in New South Wales and Victoria, they have lost a lot of the school year by not being able to open because they've had the Delta virus that has gone through many of their schools. So this is about giving parents confidence that we will have the RAT tests available at their schools if their child or teachers or anyone in the school community is symptomatic at school. It's best to get them out of the school as quickly as possible. But then too, we have very good health networks around the state, and also too, that huge requirement on our PCRs is not there at the moment. So there won't be any issues I can foresee getting those tests at this stage.
Will there be restrictions for unvaccinated parents attending school?
I'll have to ask the Health Minister, the Education Minister that. Any other questions on schools for me? Okay.
Thank you, that's a good question. Obviously, we're restricting the access to parents during the first 4 weeks, but no, you don't have to be vaccinated to access, particularly if you're in that kindy to year one. You can drop your child off if you're in a vulnerable area or in our CDEP centres as well. So no, we're not requiring vaccination, but obviously if you're a regular volunteer, like the mandate that's in place in every other state and territory, we're making sure that that is being adhered to. No, that will be based upon the health advice, that will be based upon the breakout at the time. You can't have a one-size-fits-all in those situations. We will be working very closely with health, with Dr. Gerard. We'll be monitoring the situation, but obviously we'll be treating it like it is any other breakout at this point in time, but the closing of schools will become our last resort. Yes?
Right, so Lydia just answered the question.
Oh, right.
Gerard at all? Dr. Gerard.
Dr. Gerard, sorry.
Obviously, we're still trying to get to the 90% done. So is there any particular strategies that we've been employing to target that particular group? We're still not over that line yet?
Oh, I think, look, we're approaching that fairly quickly. We think the reason why we're just sort of nudging slowly is because there were a lot of young people who received their first dose around Christmas time and then probably got COVID between their first and second dose, and they've just delayed it slightly. We're not unduly concerned about that.
Can I just ask you on check-ins? There's data suggesting it's decreasing the amount of use. Are you concerned about that? And then secondly, is there much point still?
We're looking at that on a daily basis, and as I've said before, once we pass this peak and we're sure that everything is under control, we'll be reviewing that very actively. I mean, we'll probably still need those check-ins, particularly for monitoring the vaccination passports, but we'll look at that very closely once we've passed the peak, which, as you know, is very close indeed.
Okay. Can we let Dr. Gerard go? All right. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Queenslanders know and trust your honesty. Surely setting up an inquiry into these allegations to do with integrity would support their view of you?
As I said very clearly, Cabinet will be considering the recommendations of the PCCC report. One of those recommendations is to set up an inquiry into certain functions of the CCC, and that is something that Cabinet will give careful consideration to.
What about a broader review that's not just concentrated on the PCCC?
As I said very clearly, Queensland has robust mechanisms and checks on integrity and accountability in this state. We have an Integrity Commissioner, we have a CCC, which is a standing royal commission, and, you know, I just want to contrast that with what checks and balances are there federally.
Surely you must be bothered by the State Archivist's comments today, though, suggesting that he was pressured to change his report. That must be concerning to you.
Well, people are entitled to their views and they are more entitled to their comments. But let me say, in relation to that report, my understanding is that report was referred to the CCC, which was basically the foundation of their inquiry into those allegations. The CCC did a thorough investigation. The CCC is a standing royal commission. This is what Queensland has. Queensland has robust checks and balances on levels of government.
No, we have the integrity.
Sorry?
Why wasn't the State Archivist report?
My understanding was forwarded to the CCC, Josh.
But should it have been released publicly?
Well, that's a matter for the State Archivist. My understanding provides it to the Director General, doesn't provide it to the Minister.
But it was commissioned by your government.
But it all got forwarded to the CCC, so the CCC could have released that report.
But it was up to your government to release it. It was provided to your government as well, wasn't it?
It was all forwarded to the CCC at the time, Josh. You can go and have it. No, it wasn't provided to Cabinet, and nor should it be provided to Cabinet. That would have been amounted to interference. Let me be very clear here. Cabinet did not see that report. Let me be absolutely clear on that. It was my understanding is it was forwarded to the CCC, and in fact, if you go and look at the CCC statement at the time, it actually says that. It says it was on that basis potential that it was referred to the State Archivist to investigate subject to close monitoring by the CCC. The CCC received the final report from the State Archivist on the 5th of September 2017 and formally assumed responsibility for the investigation on the 12th of September 2017 in order to determine any criminality.
Premier, the
I
integrity.
remember at the time you were saying you were waiting on the State Archivist to review all the documents, and it was up to them and the CCC. So there was an important part that the State Archivist was playing that you were relying on.
It was investigated by the CCC. The CCC is the standing royal commission that we have in this state, and it is the appropriate body to investigate all of these matters. And they did so. And they did a thorough investigation.
The Integrity Commissioner directly raised concerns about her office with Dave Stewart, including the wanting the forensic exam on her laptop, as well as resourcing issues. Were you aware that these concerns were raised, and why didn't you act?
No, Lydia, let me make it very clear. My understanding is, and I said it, my understanding, if I recall, I said it on Friday, is that these matters are with the CCC, and I'm not commenting any further.
Do you think it was ethical of Mark Bailey to have used his private email account so many times?
It has all been investigated by the CCC. The recommendations were made to government, and government implemented all of those recommendations.
When it was ethical?
It was all examined, Dominique. This all happened in 2015, 2017. It has all been examined.
We understand the CCC's finished its investigation into the politicisation of the public service. Where is that report, and have you asked?
Well, you'll
to
have
see
to
it?
ask for the CCC. I
Have
don't
you
ring up.
asked to see it?
No, it would be highly inappropriate, Lydia, for the Premier to ring up the CCC and demand a report. Honestly, you'd attack me if I did that.
The Public Service Commission last year had to issue a directive under the orders of the CCC that appointments must be merit-based. Were you concerned about that, and did that point to problems in the way that government appoints people?
As I said, there was a recommendation made to the Public Service Commissioner at the time, and my understanding is it has been implemented.
Sorry, just on the State Archivist report. So who was it that commissioned that report? I remember you distinctly talking about it at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't me, Josh. So you'll have to ask. You'll have to ask the minister responsible at the time, or the Director General at the time, because my understanding is the State Archivist reports to the Director General, not to the minister.
Director General of the Attorney General.
You'll have to look back at that time. This is 2017. We're going back 5 years here. I don't remember exactly what I said 5 years ago.
But I remember when Mr. Bailey's emails came into question, I remember you referring back, you said the state archivists will be looking at this. So who was it then that decided that was the best course of action?
The Triple C.
No, but the Triple C received that.
The Triple C received the report from the State Archivist, and the Triple C issued a statement. And can I just urge you to read that statement?
But who was it the commission?
It was the 22nd of September 2017. Let me be very clear to all of our online followers. The Triple C issued a statement on the 22nd of September 2017.
Aside from that directive to the Public Service Commission around asking them to issue that directive, has the Triple C made any recommendations to the government about merit-based appointments since then, in the last 2 years?
My understanding, Lydia, I'll have to double check, my understanding is that the recommendations were made to the Public Service Commission and they have been implemented by government.
When will that report be made public?
You'll have to ask the Triple C.
Howard Whitten has called for a short-term review to look at integrity and the Integrity Commissioner's office. What did you think of that, and why don't you think it's necessary to hold a broader review?
Well, let me say very clearly, there has been a thorough review. The 5-year statutory review, as I said on Friday, Dominic, and you were at the press conference, I said very clearly on Friday that Kevin Ewbury did a review. That review has gone to the Economics and Governance Committee. You follow Parliament as well. It went to the Economic and Governance Committee. Their submissions close on the 31st of January. Then they'll report to Parliament, and then government has 3 months to then respond to that report. There has been a thorough review which the Integrity Commission actually put in a submission to, and she agreed, my understanding is she agreed to the process.
What about the integrity issues raised by the former State Archivist, though? Do you think that warrants more of a look at?
The report was sent to the Triple C.
But do you think there's any truth to what he's saying? I mean, he's suggesting he was pressured. I mean, that's pretty concerning.
Well, that's a matter for him, and he forwarded his report to the Triple C.
But was the Triple C aware that
the Triple
he was
C
pressured?
are the Standing Royal Commission, that has a check and balance over government. There is no Standing Royal Commission that does the checks and balances over the federal government.
I'm more interested in your view as Premier. Is that concerning to you that the State Archivist feels he's being
Look, we
pressured?
should have a public service that can give fearless and frank advice. I've always had that opinion of our public service, and to that can I thank every single public servant who works in our state. Now, unlike the LNP, we don't sack public servants. We don't tell community organisations that they're gagged from speaking up against the government. And my understanding is that the LNP actually sacked their Integrity Commissioner in 2014. Now, Nicola, our Integrity Commissioner, is there until July.
But he seems to
and
suggest
it's halfway through her second term, and she's chosen to go to another job.
He seems to suggest that ability is compromised. He seems to suggest that ability is compromised to give that frank and fearless advice. I mean, that's the nature of what he's suggesting.
My understanding is he raised that with his Director General. It's appropriate course of action. It is absolutely appropriate course of action.
Do you think public service...
Are you aware that the State Archivist conducted any other reports into Minister Enoch's office at the time?
Not to my knowledge, Josh.
Do you think public service
You'd have to ask her.
too worried about making the government look good?
Oh, well, I think that's not true at all. I think our public servants do a great job. Look how our health heroes have done an extraordinary job over the last 2 years of this pandemic. Look at how our police have done the borders, have done our hotel quarantine, out there fighting crime as well. I mean, this has been an extraordinary period of time over the last 2 years. And can I just say, our frontline personnel and people working behind the scenes as well have done an extraordinary job, and every Queenslander owes a debt of gratitude for the work that they are doing and the work they're continuing to do. Like, it's encouraging to see that the numbers are now coming down. Like I said to you on Friday, we had those projections of needing 5,000 beds at the moment, and the projections for death loss were unbelievable. And to me, Queenslanders have responded, they've got vaccinated, and as the Chief Health Officer said, Queenslanders actually went and got vaccinated before we opened the borders. Families have been able to be reunited, and now families can reunite with their loved ones internationally as well.
Do you have plans to follow New South Wales announcing a business support
Look, that's a good question. I'm happy to look to see what. Honestly, I think New South Wales has been impacted a lot. They've had a lot of disruption over the past 2 years. But I'm quite sure the Treasurer will look into those issues. But like I said, one of our steps we're announcing today is getting back to school and back to work. And we know that a lot of businesses are not getting the through traffic at the moment because of a lot of people are at home, which is what we've asked people to do. And you know, I think Queenslanders have listened, and they've done a great job during this pandemic. But now it's really important to get your booster. It's important to get that second dose for your children, and for your young children 5 to 11, it's really important to get that first dose. So everyone's got a week until then. Okay, last question. I think I'm still here a long time.
Do you believe that, given all of the reports in the past 2 weeks, do you believe that public servants feel comfortable to provide government with frank and fearless advice still? I
think they should feel they can do that, Lydia. Absolutely, that is what I would encourage them to do. Honestly, they are doing a remarkable job. They work hard each and every day to fulfil their duties as a public servant in this state. And, you know, unlike the former LNP that attacked them, I will not attack our public servants. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.